What horrors erupted from the warp in humanity's darkest hour? The Inquisitor's search for truth leads him to the dusty archives of terror, where he pores over battle reports, long sealed by the High Lords. By dim lumen light, he uncovers a faded parchment from the Horus Heresy, its margins blacked out by censors, stamped excommunicate for heresy. Heart-pounding, he deciphers two names scrawled beneath the ink, Samus and Madail. These names had been all but purged from Imperial records, and little wonder. Their mere mention once drove soldiers to madness. The report describes a grim episode during the Galactic Civil War. As the traitor legions pushed toward Terra, the warp itself boiled over in a cacophonous tempest known as the Ruin Storm, isolating whole sectors in nightmares made real. In that storm's heart, new demonic entities took shape unbidden, owing loyalty to no single god. One was Samus, called the One Who Walks Behind. A panicked Vox recording preserved by accident repeats over and over, "Samus is here, Samus is here." Wherever that name was uttered, bloodshed and insanity followed. The Inquisitor's quill scratches faster as he visualizes the battle described. Legionaries of the Death Guard and World Eaters, allies turned traitors, wheeled about in confusion, firing into shadows at an unseen killer, even as the few loyalist survivors did the same. Through the crimson haze of war, a shape flickered at the edge of vision, sometimes a gaunt, corpse-like man, sometimes a hulking beast. Always it was heralded by that chilling chant, "Samus is here." In that nameless battle, Samus was eventually banished back into the warp, but he was not destroyed. Accounts claim Samus returned again and again on different battlefields throughout the heresy, a relentless hunter from the Imperium. During the Siege of Terror itself, rumors whisper that Rogel Dawn crossed blades with this entity in the palace corridors. Dawn's mighty sword slashing through howling mist as often as it met claw. Samus, it seemed, was a demon born of Chaos Undivided, a manifestation of the warp's collective bloodlust, given a singular identity. And when the Horus Heresy ended and the Ruin Storm faded, Samus did not conveniently vanish. The Inquisitor notes later sightings. Samus still lingers at the edges of reality, appearing wherever the veil grows thin and mortal lives are ripe to be snuffed out. A persistent, hungry spirit, perhaps minor compared to a true chaos god, but frightening for its independence. No cult venerates Samus, no icon bears his mark, yet he kills and corrupts all the same. The Inquisitor forces himself to turn the page, and now writes of Madail, a being even more formidable, if such a thing is possible. That name surfaced in a forgotten Legion journal he discovered on an expedition to an obscure moon. The journal belonged to an Iron Hands veteran who fought on the nightmare world of Pythos. Pythos, a graveyard of hope during the Horus Heresy, was where a desperate alliance of loyalist shattered legions ventured, only to spring a demonic trap. Translating the faded High Gothic, the Inquisitor's hand trembles as he records the legionaries' warning. "We broke the seals. Hell followed. Madail is free." Through the legionaries' eyes, he narrates the battle on Pythos. Black skies churned with warp storm clouds as Mardale emerged from a cyclonic rift. The fiend towered above Astartes like a titan of old night, wreathed in flames of every color of chaos and roaring with a voice that shook the heavens. Here was a demon not of one god's making, but perhaps all of them combined, a shock weapon unleashed by the Pantheon in a rare moment of accord. The traitor forces had lured the loyalists to that forsaken world for the sole purpose of releasing this apex demon upon them. One survivor's account called Mardale a dark messiah of chaos, a creature who fancied itself the herald of the Pantheon's ultimate victory. In horrifying detail, the journal described how Madail fell upon the loyalist legions. Space Marines, humanity's finest warriors, were swatted aside like insects. Iron Hands, salamanders, even ultramarines in their indomitable Terminator armor were butchered. In one instance, the demon snatched up 2 veteran Terminators, one in each massive claw, and smashed them together, ceramite plate and bone exploding in a red mist as Madail laughed. Reality itself bent around the monster to shield him. Wounds that should have slain any creature knit closed in moments. Where Mardale's blood spilled, the ground spawned writhing lesser demons that clawed at the Primarch's feet. It seemed as if this herald of Chaos Undivided might achieve what Horus and all his armies could not: slay multiple Primarchs in a single battle. Yes, 3 Primarchs themselves had to face Madail amid the ash dunes of Pythos: Sanguinius, the great angel; Robut Guilliman, the avenging sun; and Lionel Johnson, the Lion of Caliban, fighting side by side in a scene out of legend, which speaks to the enormity of the threat. The Inquisitor can almost see it. Sanguinius soaring on tattered wings above the gargantuan demon, spear of light in hand; Guilliman bellowing orders, the avenging sun's blade cutting deep; the Lion of Caliban striking from the flank, wrath and discipline united. Even so, Madail held the upper hand for a terrifying span of moments. His unholy might shrugged off blows that would fell even a greater demon of Khorne, and his laughter invaded the minds of all who heard it, driving lesser mortals insane. But the Emperor's sons proved both resilient and valiant. The Inquisitor records with a flourish the moment the 3 Primarchs rallied. Sanguinius, haloed in golden light, drove his blade into Mardale's chest with a righteous cry, while Guilliman and the Lion struck in concert from both flanks, Ultramar's discipline and Caliban's fury together. Cornered at last, Madail let loose a psychic shriek that toppled warriors for miles around. Yet the Primarchs did not relent. Blow by blow they beat the monstrosity down, overcoming its dark advantages through sheer skill and perhaps a measure of the Emperor's grace. In the end, Madail was cast howling back into the warp, banished by the combined might of 3 demigods of mankind. The victory came at grievous cost. The journal's last lines were a blood-stained lament for the thousands dead, and a prayer of thanks that the Herald of Chaos was defeated. But the Inquisitor knows this was not truly the end of Madail. Cross-referencing other forbidden sources, he confirms that Madail reappeared one final time during the Siege of Terror, amid the horde of demons flooding through the breached palace gates. Terrified defenders swore the fiend battled its way toward the Eternity Gate itself, only to vanish when the traitors ultimately failed and retreated. What became of such a being? The Inquisitor can only theorize. In his notes, he posits that the Chaos Gods themselves withdrew Madail from the board. Having failed to turn the tide of war, this uncontrollable beast was likely imprisoned or obliterated by its own creators once its purpose was served. After all, the Dark Gods would not suffer such a powerful, undivided demon to roam unchecked in the aftermath of their defeat, not when their great game of rivalry was set to resume. Too many wild cards, he reflects, and even the gods of chaos grow nervous. By now, the candle in the Inquisitor's cell has burned low, shadows dancing on the walls, as he imagines the echo of that battle on Pythos, the roars of the demon, the war cries of Primarchs. Shuddering, he banishes the vision and presses on. Among the traitor legions, whispers of fear and awe had surrounded names like Samus and Madail. They were heralds of the ruin storm, yes, but also harbingers of a larger truth. Chaos could spawn entities beyond even its god's control. The Imperium never officially recorded these battles in detail. Only through forbidden texts and survivor testimonies Has the Inquisitor unearthed them? And perhaps for good reason, he concedes. Knowledge of such unbridled demons, whose power nearly toppled even the Emperor's gene-sons, could sow despair in human hearts. Yet knowledge is the greatest weapon he has, and so he writes it all, sparing no detail, hoping to arm anyone who reads this for the trials to come. Steeling himself, the Inquisitor now turns from ancient chronicles to his own harrowing experiences. The next entry in his secret chronicle will force him to relive horrors he personally witnessed, encounters with unbound demons that were chained, however tenuously, by mortal hands.